podcast and take this walk with me.
Welcome back to the show. And I got a guest for y'all today. I know you hear Dr. Brez keeps saying he got a guest. The reality is every guest is a bad guest. I'm telling you. And this brother right here, I am telling you, David Patty. Let me tell you about David really quickly. We ain't got all day because he got a lot of things to say. Number one, this guy is a Renaissance man. That's who I consider him as. So I want you to get an idea for those who just listening and those not watching video. He could be, if he's not already, like the model for REI. He's just the poster child for REI. Everything about him is organic, it's adventurous, it's love, it's live, it's life. Like he's a walking billboard. Like he lives the life that these people are depicted on these billboards. I just need y'all to know who we're going to talk to today. So David is a man of many talents. He's currently a graduate student in a master's program, working on his master's in clinical mental health counseling, expects to get a license, go into private practice. He's a student now, but before being a student, he did all these other things. Actor, producer, director, climber, runner, sprinter, camper. I mean, he does everything. This guy does it all. And I cannot wait to introduce you all to him so you can get a taste, you can get a listen and experience of Mr. David Patty. Welcome to the show.
Wow. Thank you. Thanks for having me. That was, wow, such a glowing review. You got me pretty spot on with the REI catalog, but happy to be here. Really excited.
Excellent. So I'm curious, what's the latest? What's the news? What's the word? How you been?
I've been good, man. Yeah. I'm on like my summer break from classes right now for like a month. So that's been really nice. So I'm still seeing clients and I'm still working my part-time job. But I've had a little bit more time. So I was actually able to go up and spend like a week with my parents in the Bay Area. That's where I grew up. And like 2 weeks ago, my dad and I we have like a yearly tradition where we go backpacking together. And so a couple of weeks ago, my dad and I went up to Desolation Wilderness, like near Lake Tahoe, spent 4 days out in the forest. It was absolutely beautiful. Just a really, honestly, like maybe one of the best weekends of my life. We can get into it.
We might as well. You started there. Let's go and get into it.
But yeah, that was really great. And then the week after that, I went with one of my really close friends back up to the mountains, kind of just outside of Bishop. So that's a big part of my life, going outside and especially like in the mountains, the Sierras, especially. I've been in California my whole life, and there's just still so many new places. Like I feel like I'm constantly able to find new adventures and things like that. So yeah, I've been doing pretty good.
Love it. Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing all of that. I would definitely want to talk more about Dad. We would definitely get there. But I'm curious, the story, like how did you go from, being born and raised here, traveling, experiencing all these different things to end up here? Because you mentioned, your next adventure. I feel like getting this therapy degree is another adventure that you signed up for intentionally. It's a thrill ride that you signed up for. So just leading up to that, what got you here? Just curious.
For sure. Yeah. So I guess, it might sound kind of like a joke, but we kind of have to start on the day that I was born, because so I was born here in LA, and I was adopted on the day that I was born by two therapists, actually, and then moved up to the Bay Area and lived there, grew up there, and it was a really nice time. I think my parents, being therapists, being good therapists, like they really created a space for me to sort of explore and expand and kind of become who I wanted to be. And I think also adoption had a bit to do with that too. Like there's something about, not being of my parents that sort of created a different dynamic that allowed them to be like, who are you? You're not a piece of me. So, who is it that you are? And they just really created a space for me to kind of be myself. And from a really young age, I really just would find myself getting lost in kind of imaginary worlds and characters and stories. And so my mom signed me up for like acting classes and doing theater. and I loved it. And so I did theater most of my life from like 6 through the end of high school. I was doing mostly plays, a little bit of musical theater. And then, going to college, I was like, is this something that I really want to do? Is this something that is really important to me? And I was I ended up feeling like it was. I knew that storytelling was a really deep part of who I was, and I wanted to get as good at that as I could. And so I moved to LA, and I went to undergrad at Chapman University in Orange County. Got a degree in screen acting, and those 4 years were really transformative in a lot of ways. I mean, if you really boil it down, I essentially went to college to learn how to feel my feelings.
You got to tell us about it.
Yeah, I basically went to a 4-year intensive program on emotional expression, and storytelling. And it was beautiful and it was awesome. And I was like, wow, this is it was such creative energy. I was in a cohort of 9 people. So it was a very small class. We were in classes every day together, just doing our best work. And it was everything that I had always wanted out of acting and storytelling. And it was at a very high level. And then I moved to LA to kind of do the thing, the sort of grind as it is. And I was doing, commercials and, projects here and there that, kind of build a sort of portfolio. I knew that was kind of part of the game, but it wasn't really what I was passionate about. It wasn't really sort of the type of stories that I wanted to be telling. I was kind of at the discretion of whatever came my way, and I kind of just had to say yes. At the time, I was like, okay, this is what you got to do. I'll do that. And then the pandemic happened, which was, changed a lot of things, I think, for a lot of people. But for me, the whole industry shut down for a while, and I actually moved back up with my parents for a few months and kind of had like an existential crisis, I guess. I was like, what I'm doing, auditioning, doing these commercials, like that's not helping people. And there's a lot of people who need help. And I didn't know if I could, in good conscience, like wake up in like 20 years and have just been doing that. And so I was like, I need to find some other way to support myself while still wanting to be an artist, still wanting to create, still wanting to make films and tell stories, but knowing that if I wanted to support myself financially doing that, I'd be making a lot of compromises. And so that's kind of what led me to counseling. And, I think I didn't have that much time to think about it before I applied to grad school programs. I was just like, all right, let's go in this direction. To be honest, I think that worked in my favor, because I think if I had really thought about all of the steps and the years and of stuff that I'm having to do, which I'm loving, by the way. I mean, it's a really great journey to be on, but it's a big one. I mean, it's a huge, like you said, it's an adventure, it's an undertaking, and it's a bit intimidating at times, and I'm kind of smack in the middle of it right now. But I'm feeling good about kind of the path that I'm on, and who knows where it's going to go from here. But yeah, that's kind of what led me to counseling.
Yeah. So let me ask the passion. Where did the passion come from? Was it because you had 2 parents that were therapists? Because of the adoption? Where would you say this passion of I want to help, I want to serve? Where did that come from?
Yeah, that's a good question. I definitely think it comes, from my parents in a big way. Not in the way that I was like, oh, I want to do what they do, because I think even though in a lot of ways I am kind of, I guess, going into the family business, so to speak, I think the ideas that I have in mind of how I want to do it are quite different from anything that my parents have done. So it's not that I'm necessarily wanting to do exactly what they did, but I think, like you're saying, that sort of healing philosophy of wanting to be a healer, wanting to be someone who, is there for others. I think I always have known in myself that that's something that I was good at. I mean, again, in college, we're doing all these really intense emotional things with acting, and I found myself being there for my friends and kind of helping them through emotional things. And so I think it's always been a part of me. It's always been something that I've kind of been drawn towards, is like being able to help others. Because I think also because my parents were therapists, I had a pretty stable emotional foundation.
Mm,
Uh, so I think I had like a lot of reserve to draw from to give,
yeah.
relative to someone that might be in a tougher spot and is kind of needing to take care of themselves and get themselves on track. And I think I've come from a place of kind of a lot of fortune and privilege that I think giving to others has been a bit easier because of that.
Wow. Wow. What do your parents think? What are they thoughts about you deciding I'm gonna go in this direction?
They're thrilled, I think, actually. Um, I think that they're really excited. I mean, not that they were always so excited and supportive of all of my creative stuff that I was doing, and they still are, and they still totally kind of get that that is still my identity, which can be kind of hard to explain to other people sometimes. I think sometimes I get a lot of like, oh, so you're doing therapy now, and I kind of have to be like, well, I'm doing therapy now, but I'm still very much doing the stuff I was doing before too. And I think that's kind of hard for people to understand. Uh,
Oh yeah, we gotta dive into this. We gotta dive into it. Continue. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I mean, that's pretty much it. But yeah, no, it's been really cool being able to kind of share with my parents in like what I'm learning and, kind of get kind of professional consultation from them about some of the questions that come up. So yeah, no, I feel really lucky to be able to kind of be going alongside them, while, like I said, at the same time, kind of finding what direction I want to go with it. That is kind of something that I didn't see in what they did, and then, honestly, I don't see in a lot of people. So I feel like I'm kind of trying to create something new with it.
Okay, so I'm loaded. I got questions. I got plenty of them. All right, so
Let's do
I'm
it.
gonna put them together because it's so much that you share. There's so many layers to what you're sharing, and it's important for me that the listeners get as much of this content, of this information as possible, because you never know how your story can impact other people and the things that you say. Like a lot of these things I may say, but if you hear it from me all the time, doesn't may not have as much impact. But hearing some of those same things from someone else, it can be impactful. So I'm curious about the transition and you deciding like I want to do something different. I want to do something similar to my parents, but I want to do it in my own way. What was their way, and what would you consider your idea of how you want to do things or how you're doing things? The second
Mhm.
is connected to the thought about, people have a hard, this is, I'm paraphrasing, people have a hard time accepting your growth. Ooh, people
Mhm.
have a hard time accepting when you change. And it's like,
Mm,
what I heard was like, you pivot, you're doing something else in addition to, but for some people, they only saw you transit. You're not doing that other thing, which means the idea is you can only do one thing.
right,
So I want to know
right,
about all that. Give me
for
all of it.
sure. All right, so the first part, the transition, finding my own sort of direction. Um, I think it's a developing thing. It's something that I still don't feel like, oh, I know where I'm going. I know exactly where I'm gonna get to. I'm kind of in process, which I think is somewhat of a new thing for me in a way. Like, I think my identity as like an actor was formed so early on that it was like I never really questioned it. It's like, oh yeah, David, he's an actor. That's what he does. Um, and as I kind of have been growing and expanding, it's like, well, I'm more than that. And when it comes to like therapy, so my parents are both psychologists, and really good ones, but they do the kind of traditional what you would imagine, sort of in an office. Well, now they do a lot of telehealth because of COVID since then. But for years they were in an office seeing individuals, some couples, some families, um, kind of doing talk therapy from a humanistic sort of psychodynamic sort of background, kind of what you would think of as a therapist when you think of like the traditional therapist, which I think is really great, and I think there's still like a huge place for that.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was sort of thinking about, oh, do I want to involve therapy in my life? Do I want to become, someone that is a healer that does this thing? it actually kind of emerged from, so I mentioned earlier, I do these, I go backpacking a lot. I do these kind of immersive wilderness experiences, and I would honestly say that being immersed in nature has been maybe one of the single most healing pieces of my life.
Wow.
Being able to kind of escape from, not even escape from, like, because that's the thing, is I feel like there's this whole kind of in common language, we talk about like, oh, like we kind of escape or we go off and then we come back to real life. It's like, oh, like back to the real world. Like you hear that a lot when people like come back from some of these experiences. To me, it's like I go out there to remember what the real world actually is.
I love it.
Like,
I love it.
and it got to a point where, I had been backpacking for maybe like 7 years, something like that. I'd really done it a lot, and I went on my first ever like solo trip. So it was just me out in the woods. My brother actually hiked in with me. He stayed with me for a couple of days, and then I spent 5 more days by myself out in the woods. And through that, like I really just kind of came to this conclusion. It's like I'm pretty good at this. Like I can do this, and I would love to bring others into this. And so I was like, oh, is that a thing that people can do? Like, and I like started looking at it, and like, like, yes, there's like wilderness therapy and outdoor adventure therapy. Like these are things that like exist, but they're not super mainstream. Not a lot of people, like a lot of times it's for like young boys that just kind of go out into the woods to like learn survival skills and kind of build character, which I think is great in its own way. But let's say like you or like your family or like you and your partner like have been going through a hard time and would like a weekend getaway with a therapist to like kind of reset and like kind of get down to like what's really going on. Like I don't see a whole lot of that happen. And so to me, what I'm envisioning, that I would like to do is to do therapy outside. Whether it's just on like day walks or whether it's on like weekend trips, but like kind of integrating this really healing component of nature that I've kind of had for years now, and integrate therapy into that, which is kind of a newer thing. So there's still a ways to go on that journey, but that's what I'm kind of envisioning when I think about like what's the kind of therapy that I want to do.
Yeah, well, this is so powerful. As I mentioned, sharing stories, you don't know how many people you've impacted by sharing your story. And I say that because a lot of times we're taught in programs, in counseling programs, the box, the sandbox. This is where we go. This is where you need to be. This is the best place, which is all in good intention to learn the basics, to learn the foundation. But sometimes we get stuck in the sandbox. And, what I love about this profession and about life is it's a beach. Like life is a beach, literally. You can really, it doesn't end. It's open, it's wide, it's way bigger than us. And what I hear is you willing to challenge these beliefs around the sandbox and step outside of it and lay out on the beach. And a lot of people in your same position don't feel as though they can. They don't have permission. They're not allowed. It doesn't exist, so I'm not going to do it. And what I'm hearing for you is, I don't know if it exists or not, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And it's a beautiful thing, because as we change as a society, our profession changes as well. So how we do the work, just like you were saying, part of the reason you transition here, COVID happened. COVID changed a lot of things about the way we live, which what you want to do, which I'm sure you're going to do it, is innovative, it's creative, and it's not mainstream. I have no doubt you will probably be that person. You probably, and sponsored by REI. Like, I'm just saying.
Let's hope.
More likely.
Yeah.
Because you're willing to take a risk. You're willing to step outside the sandbox. You're willing to lay out in the sand because you're passionate about it. Like, it's no question,
Yeah.
And to me, like, that gives you the leverage to do things that the average person just refuses to do.
For
which
sure.
goes back to what we were saying before about, you can only do one thing. Like, what do you mean you're doing
Right.
therapy now? It's the same thing. It's the sandbox mentality.
Right.
I can only do
Yeah.
one
No,
thing.
you're so right about that. And it does kind of transition well into that other piece of your question, which is, you know, the people that sort of are in the box, which I think is also like not not something to be personally sort of like blamed for, because society tells us
Yes.
that we're only allowed to do certain things,
Yes.
or only
Absolutely.
pick one thing and then go do that. So it's
Mhm.
like, for the people who are like, oh, but like, I thought you were doing this other thing and now you're doing this thing, but you're doing both things. It's like, I don't blame them for that being hard to understand, because
Mm.
we're all sort of like swimming in the water of this very like rigid sort of idea of the world. And to honestly, to be someone that says like, no, actually, I'm gonna do multiple things, and I might actually like do other things later that I don't even know those things are, like, that's kind of a risky thing to do in a world that tells you to kind of pick your lane and just do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what has given you this confidence and courage to just do it anyway? Like, it's a vision, it's an idea, it's faith. You're stepping out. Like, what gave you that drive? Like, a lot of people will refuse to do what you're thinking about that you want to do and you're working towards. How did you get here?
Yeah. I mean, I gotta throw credit to my parents again with this, in that I think they've been such unconditional supports to me, and are always willing to kind of get behind me in whatever I want to do. And I want to kind of reemphasize, like, they adopted me. So what that means is they chose to love me and accept me and to care about me, even though they didn't have to. And I say that because I think there's probably a lot of people that are like, oh, I wish I had supportive parents. I wish I had parents that kind of nurtured and supported me in those ways. And because I think that that's a reality for a lot of people, that they don't have that same support from their parents. But in the same way that my parents are kind of not exactly my parents, I think we can get that support and that sort of love from a lot of different places in life. And I think when you find those people that like really are willing to kind of believe in you and sort of like tell you like, don't worry about what everyone else says, just do you, and kind of find that, I would honestly credit you with that as well. Like, when in the class that I took with you, that kind of encouragement, like, those people I think are so important. Those people that are willing to tell you, because it's hard to find it just within yourself. To just be like, you know what, I am enough. I am, kind of worth sort of investing in. When you don't get that message from the outside, it can be really hard to find it within. But it is in there.
Yeah.
I think, like, and that has been a journey for me too, because I think especially like in undergrad with acting, like, there's so much like comparing yourself to other people in the acting sort of world, and like, oh, like so and so is like really good, and like, I can't do that, or I'm not that good, or why did they get the role and not me? And so there's just a lot of comparison. And I remember I had a professor who is a really influential part of my life, who basically said to me one day, like, David, like, the only person you're competing with is yourself, because like, if you don't get the role, then that role wasn't for you. And you can only be a better you. And then when the roles that are meant for you come along, like, you can just keep doing better at those. But it's like, just knowing that it's like, these other people, they're them and you can't be them. You can only be you, which you said at the very beginning of this. So I think that's like a really important part of it. And that isn't like, you can't just say that and believe it. It takes kind of years. And I think I'm still in a process of, doing that. But I have kind of developed a sort of confidence of like, you know what, like, I want to, because that's the thing. It's like, it's not like I'm like, oh, I want to be the person that is an artist and a therapist. because that will mean something. It's more that I want to create art and I want to do therapy. Like,
Yeah.
And I want to do other things too. And it's like, why do I not get to do all of that? Like, who says?
I love it. I love it. I love it. And I admire your energy and passion around it. You know where you are, you know what you want, and you're confident about it. And it's a great thing. And I feel as though for many of us, salamanders living salamander life, it's really hard to give yourself that thing that you need or to continue the legacy that your parents gave you to create, and similar analogy to the sandbox and the beach. I look at us people as balloon and string. You got balloon people, you got string people. We need both. And one way to, work in harmony or in healthiest way possible is connect the two. Connect the string with the balloon. So that's individuals and that's us ourselves. So it's connecting the dots. So you can be adventurous and have a balloon, but there's a string there too. Like I want to put some things together. So that gives you that balance, that gives you that peace. And for me, just on the outside looking in, you're going to flourish with it because of all these different experiences. And my belief, I'm going on a limb here, this experience in undergrad prepared and propelled you to be exactly where you are right now. Just a thought. I won't put this on your lap. You can do whatever you want to do with it. So I'll put this on your lap. What you just shared about what that professor said to you was impactful. You were in an environment, I'm assuming, because I've never been there, you were in an environment that was competitive. Everybody's competing with each other, cut your throat, whatever it takes to get to that spot. And that's compounded by culture, society, US, like the whole nine. So you navigated that for 4 years. I want to go back to what you shared. Emotionally, you got an emotional degree in that environment. It was an environment you overcame, and you still decided, "I'm good. Thank you for the experience. This is cool. I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna do it my way. Thanks for the foundation." Very similar to the master's program. You're doing the same thing. Thank you for the information. Thank you for the foundation. We're gonna go out in nature. So I just need you to see those parallels. Who you were, who you are, you're becoming.
For sure. That's a really good point.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. That like it's kind of like phase 2 of the same pattern. Of like, yeah, you go and you learn the foundation, you learn the fundamentals. Like here's, how you tell a good story, how you express, how you emote. And I'm like, yes, this is so helpful. And like you said, like I've never once like felt like my degree in acting like didn't give me tools that I still use all the time. And I think it'd be easy to say like, oh, you're not doing acting as much, does it feel like you like wasted that time? And I'm like, not at all. Like I needed that as a person. I mean, it literally taught me how to be more expressive with like my family. Like there were a lot of breakthroughs through that period of like, oh, like I haven't been vulnerable. I haven't been emotional with the people in my life, and it taught me how to do that. And it continues to. And I think it teaches me how to be a more empathic therapist too. That I know how to speak, I know how to express myself, but I know sort of what it takes to access emotions too. So yeah, and then I think with this too, like, yeah, it's so great to learn the foundations of counseling and like, what we found that works well, what doesn't work well. But then having the freedom to go off and be like, well, let's try something that no one's ever tried. And we don't know if it works well or not, but we got to try it. And just see what happens.
Okay. All right. I love it. I'm here for it. We're going to switch gears just for a moment because I'm curious, thinking about the evolution of our profession, the evolution of the helping profession, counseling profession is ever evolving. And with the technology and wellness aspect that we have, it's moving really fast. For example, 5 years ago, virtual therapy was an argument. Telehealth therapy was an argument. It wasn't even a thing that we were really into. It was an argument. It was some back and forth about it. And now it's nothing. This is our normal life. People doing therapy in their car, in their closet, wherever. we have that ability. And I feel what's coming next is other things that we were looked at differently or taboo that's now being integrated into therapy, such as psychedelic assisted therapy, um, using psilocybin and even ketamine. So this is another world that's coming. We can't do nothing about it. I don't care who you are. We cannot do anything about it because it's coming. So I'm curious, especially with the being in nature and connecting in nature and then connecting to these medicines to do different things. I would love to hear your thoughts and perspective about that. And is that something you're interested in?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad we're talking about this because yeah, I think it's an incredibly exciting kind of world of experience. And I think in the same ways that nature, so I want to say like nature has been healing and helpful to me on its own. I've had experiences, completely just in nature that have been like transformative. But I've also had psychedelic experiences in nature that have just taken things to the next level. Like it has been a huge part of my healing journey. It has opened my mind to things that I just never thought possible. I mean, if we're being really honest, like this past trip that I had with my dad, the two of us did psilocybin together. Wow. And had just the most profound day that you could imagine, and I'm so lucky to be able to have that kind of relationship with my dad. But I mean, in terms of like integrating psychedelics into healing, I think that there is so much that we don't know. And I think there's so many, I mean, if you really look into it, most of the reasons why we can't do psychedelic therapy in a bigger way is like based on kind of like nothing. I mean, based on like arbitrary rules that were set in place in like the 70s that we're still kind of climbing our way out of.
Absolutely.
And, I think it's like, one, it's natural, especially if you're talking about like psilocybin, like it's literally like of the earth. It has been shown to like not have basically any addictive properties. I mean, it's definitely something to be thoughtful about. You don't want to just like go out and like take a bunch of psychedelics and like just think you're going to be, okay. I mean, you might have a good time, but like they're very powerful things and they can really kind of take you to another place. And so I think because of that, there is this sort of healthy respect for them. And so like right now with psychedelic therapy, most of that is being done like in a very controlled environment in a room, usually with like two therapists there. And the person's just laying on a couch and the two people are like watching them. And, I'm not saying that can't be like really, really helpful, but it's a bit of a sort of forced environment in a way. You're kind of forcing someone to be in a very sort of observed state while they're going through something like that. And my hope would be that as this, because like you're saying, this is a wave that's happening. Like it is shifting, and who knows how fast that's going to go. But it's coming. And my hope would be that we realize that like that there can be safe ways to have an experience like this, in a more natural setting. That there could be a world, down the line in which someone could take like a really, safe, controlled dose of psychedelics in nature with either a single guide or a team of guides and just kind of like walk around or like sit by a lake and like think about things. But I mean, we could talk forever about this, but like what it is able to do with your mind and allow you to sort of like break out of habits and patterns of a lot of negative thinking that, can kind of just keep you in a loop. It kind of disconnects those pathways and you can kind of reform them in a way that's just like kind of magic. I mean, we don't entirely understand it, but it's kind of another whole thing that, we're seeing is incredibly helpful for people like veterans with PTSD, all sorts of people that have these like really kind of treatment resistant experiences are finding a lot of relief with psychedelics. And again, like the pharmaceutical industry, you know, makes all these pills and stuff that they really try to push on people. And I think part of what's happening is you could take psychedelics once and have a really transformative experience and maybe not need to take them again. And that's not a great financial business model. And so I think a lot of these pharmaceutical companies like, wait, I like it better when people have to keep coming back, keep taking these pills all the time. That's just my hot take. But
I love it. I'm here for it.
I think there's something to that.
I would agree 100%. So there's so many layers and there's so many directions we can go, and I agree. We can talk about it all day. And I love that we're talking about it because it needs to be talked about, just like telehealth therapy, just like remote online programs. Like, it's been waves of these things that we've rejected. We didn't want, we had feelings about, that came, some that came and went, but it's coming, like you said, that wave. So I'm curious, your experience, if you don't mind sharing, number one, like, and having an experience with your dad, and then number two, your experience itself, if you don't mind sharing, because a lot of listeners, this is the first time they've ever heard this type of conversation about it. So a lot of times we hear about, you know, psilocybin. We don't even hear about psilocybin. We hear about mushrooms, or people say magic mushrooms. And there's a stigma around that. So when we talk about psilocybin, we're looking at it in a medicinal way, but there's slang terms to any drug that's out there. So it's being able to educate people, not only the lived experience, but also everything that you mentioned leading up to where you are now.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate you kind of opening up the space to talk about these things, because like you said, I think we just need to talk about them. Like, it's not about telling people, oh, you should do this, or, you know, you shouldn't do this. It's just like, here's what happened to me, you know, and do what you want. But like, here's what happened to me. So I'll tell two stories. I'll tell the story of my first time ever doing mushrooms, because I think that kind of, in a big arc kind of a way, directly connects to this most recent time of doing mushrooms with my dad. So I'll try to kind of briefly just talk about those two. So I was 22 when I first did mushrooms. It was with my best friend, and I had just gotten out of a very intense relationship. That, you know, she was just very kind of emotionally troubled, had a really hard time feeling connected to life. It was very suicidal. And I was kind of managing her emotions for about a year. And, you know, through that, you know, I loved her and cared about her so much that I felt like I was like so drained and emptied out of love by the time I got to the end of this relationship. And it just felt like I didn't care much about anything. And, you know, I had a hard time connecting with other people. I had a hard time, you know, just really feeling all that much joy in life. And so, you know, I thought, like, it had been coming up in my life. People had been talking about, like, oh, like mushrooms, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, maybe that could be something to try. And so my best friend and I went on like a car camping weekend up in the Los Padres forest, just north of LA. And we had, like, you know, each of us like a medium to like regular sized dose of mushrooms, which is about like 3 grams. 3.5 grams is an ounce, which is about like the normal amount of quantity of like weed that you would buy at a dispensary, you know. So that's like kind of comparable to like the amount of mushrooms that you might take to like have like an experience. And so we took them like kind of in the morning. And I guess the first thing I'll say about psychedelics is, like, people think of them as like hallucinogens, which they are, but it's like this idea of like hallucinating. They're like, oh, like you're gonna like see stuff. You're gonna see like little gnomes like running around, or like a big like dragon or stuff like that. It's like, what do you see? What's the hallucination? You know? And I went in with those kind of, you know, cultural images as well, of like, oh, what am I gonna see? That was my expectation. It was like, I'm gonna see something, but I also went in with this intention of like wanting to feel love again, wanting my love back. That was kind of what I was asking the experience for. And some people talk about, you know, having an intention, you know, that can be really helpful, like kind of going in with something that you're kind of looking for. And as it started to come on, I think what I realized, and I've realized again and again, is like, you think you're going to see something that's not there, but what you actually are going to see is what's really there. And so what that means is you're looking around at these like trees. I mean, I really think nature is a great place to do it, but I mean, you could do it inside and still have a good experience. But you're starting to notice like the pattern in the bark and the ways that the pine needles are like arranged and the way that like the rocks are, and you're like everything is like perfectly placed here. Like what a like amazing place that we live, you know. And you just start like paying more attention to things. And actually with mushrooms especially, like you think it's going to be a more visual experience, but it's actually a very emotional experience because you're seeing these things, and not only is it like, wow, this is really cool, but it's like, oh my god, this is like the most beautiful, like magical thing there is, life, you know, earth, like all of this stuff. And like honestly, like most times I take mushrooms, I'm like crying, you know, just like so touched by how beautiful everything is. and and so me and my best friend just had this like amazing day where we just kind of like stayed within like a 20-foot radius, just like walking around, just kind of like hugging each other. Like I was talking about like, you know, all the people that I missed. Like I was like, I miss my parents so much. I like FaceTimed my parents and I was like, guys, I love you. Like this is like such a great day. I just want you to know like I love you so much. You know, I'm on mushrooms right now. I'm feeling really good. I would love to do this with you someday.
Wow.
Like this is so cool. I would really love to do this with you someday. And you know, that kind of planted a seed.
Wow.
Of like, okay, like maybe this could happen. Maybe this could be something that would happen. But anyway, it was just a really profound trip. I feel like I was filled with this wave of love. I got all of those feelings back, and it was kind of like night and day. And the crazy thing is, like even after it wears off, you know, in the next days, like I still felt that. It gave me something that didn't go away, which I think so often when we think of drugs, it's like you take it and you're high and you feel good, and then it wears off, and then you're kind of back down to regular. Whereas with psychedelics, for some reason, it leaves you with something that you can kind of take with you. And I don't know what that is or how that exactly works, but it's like those lessons that you get, like they stay with you. You don't forget it. I mean, you don't necessarily see the world in the same vivid detail that you do when you're on the substance, but you do kind of recognize that that's there. Like, you know, now I can see like the patterns in like tree branches and in like river water, and I'm like, I see you there. Like I see the patterns, you know, even though, you know, I'm not tripping. So that was just like, oh, this is going to become a big part of my life now. Wow. And so then fast forward a few years later, so I had done mushrooms with my dad once or twice before this most recent trip, but I'm just going to jump to that one because that just happened, and it was really kind of the culmination of kind of everything that I've ever done with my dad. Because again, my dad and I have a very unique relationship. I think because I was adopted too, you know, it's like we've been able to become like really good friends. And through these like wilderness trips and through other experiences, you know, we're really good friends. And so we went on this backpacking trip 2 weekends ago, knowing that we would take mushrooms together. Not necessarily, I didn't necessarily have like an intention per se, but I just kind of wanted to see what would happen. You know, I wanted to see what would come of our relationship, kind of going deeper. Like let's just go in there and see what happens. And so, you know, it was a 4-day trip. So it was the third of the fourth day that we ended up taking the mushrooms. And what followed was basically like, you know, I mean, there was still this visual component that we're talking about, but really, like, again, it activates your mind and your emotions in a way that you just end up having these conversations that you could definitely have not under the influence of something, but it just like your mind just kind of goes there. And so like my dad and I just had these like really deep conversations. We were just basically sitting by this creek all day, just watching the water flow by. And we started talking about just how much being in nature feels like home. And then kind of deconstructing, like, what is that home? What is that feeling? What is that, like, sensation? Like, people know what that is. And sometimes it exists at your home, in your house, where you grew up with your parents. But sometimes it exists, like, on the beach or in the mountains or, surrounded by, your community. And it's like, you're like, oh, I feel home. Like, people say that. And it's like, what is that? What is that thing? And then we kind of started talking about, like, oh, like, it's like family. And it's like, well, what's that? What's family?
Wow.
What's like mom and dad? Like, what does that mean? Because, like, there are these people in our lives that become conduits for that energy, and that was kind of the conversation. And again, we were like in this like very existential conversation. It's like, what is dad? What does that mean? Like, you're right there, but like, there's something inside of you that you got from your dad, and now you're giving it to me, but it's like an energy. It's not a thing. And it's like, you're going to die, and that's going to, like, go where? Like, I have it now. Like, what is it? Yeah. And you don't necessarily arrive at the answers, but just in the exploration of these topics, like, it feels like you're really talking about, like, the real stuff. And it was just so powerful. And I feel like so, like, incredibly fortunate to be able to do something like that, where my dad is comfortable doing that with me, where he's willing to kind of, because it kind of flattens things, you kind of get to this place where it's like, oh, I don't have the answers. You don't have the answers. Like, we're just like two people, like, walking around. Like, you're older than me. You've had more experience, but, we're kind of the same. And you kind of get that with psychedelics, where it's like, we're all the same. We're all connected and we're all the same. And, like, that lesson, like, when you really feel it, it's like, it doesn't go away.
Wow.
So anyway, that was kind of a long-winded explanation, but that's been my experience with psychedelics. And, I think it really, and again, it's kind of a radical thing to, like, do it with your dad, for example. It's like not the norm. But, and again, I'm not saying, oh, everyone go do mushrooms with your dad. I'm just saying you can do it. It's a thing that exists. Wow. It's a thing that exists that some people might be like, oh yeah, no, that sounds like, that's crazy. Like, I would never do that. That's fine. But, like, you could do that. and if it felt like, oh, that could go somewhere, new with a family, whoever, whether it's like your brother or your sister or your dad or your mom or someone that you're like, I want to go somewhere new. I want to, like, see how deep this can go. Wow. That this can be one of many ways to go there.
Oh man, this is so powerful. This is so educational. Thank you for sharing all of it. And I'm curious, because I want to be mindful of the listeners, and a lot of people, this is the first time they heard this. So a lot of the myths and beliefs and fear around mushroom psilocybin is a bad trip. So if you don't mind sharing, if you've had an experience with that, or what does that look like, to kind of paint the picture of a bad trip, because that's why that's one of the reasons a lot of people are like, I don't want to do it, because of the idea or assumption around a bad trip.
For sure. Yeah, no, I think I can definitely touch on that briefly. I mean, I would say I've never really had a bad trip, because I've been very selective about when I trip. And I think that's kind of the key. Like, I've actually had more negative experiences with, like, a substance like weed than I have had with psychedelics, because I think people use weed so casually that sometimes you can, get really high on weed in a situation that maybe even if you were sober, you'd be kind of uncomfortable. You'd be like, oh, I don't really know these people very well. I feel kind of insecure. There's a lot of loud noises going on. And it's like, oh, I feel kind of just anxious, And so I would say with psychedelics, you just want to be really mindful. Like, you want to be doing something that you would be so happy to be doing anyway. Like if you kind of plan, like ideally like a whole day where you don't have to like answer to anybody or, you know, get like a sudden phone call of like, hey, we need you to do this work related thing. You know, you want to kind of create a space, like a container for yourself, where, you know, you won't be bothered, and doing something that you love. Like if whether that's going for a hike outside, or whether, you know, it might be like just like spending a day at the beach, or whether it be, you know, like hanging out with friends, or like going to a music festival is like a common thing that people do, you know. Like if you're doing something that you would be stoked to do completely sober, and then you introduce psychedelics, like you're probably going to have a good trip. When a bad trip happens, like, because I also kind of am of the belief that there's no such thing as a bad trip. There's a challenging trip, there's a hard trip, but there might not be a bad trip.
Oh, you got to go into that. You got to go into that.
For sure. Well, because I think what often people are talking about when they say, oh, I had a bad trip, is that something was being shown to them in their mind that maybe they didn't want to see. And usually that's something that's maybe going on in their life that they maybe should probably take a look at, whether that be like a relationship that's really not working, or, you know, like a job that like is really a bad fit, you know, like mushrooms are going to show you that. And you're going to be like, wait, no, like my whole life is built on this. Like I can't like do something else. But it's like, I don't think you're happy. I don't think you're, you know, living in the way that you want to. And so, you know, that's a hard trip. You know, that's challenging, because like maybe you've invested 20 years into, you know, this marriage or this job that all of a sudden, you know, you're kind of really faced with, you know, again, it's something that was already there. You're not going to like all of a sudden, it's not going to like lie to you and like throw in information that it's like, oh, the mushrooms tricked me. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's real stuff. It's stuff that's like, oh yeah, you're probably right. You know, I'm of the belief that the mushrooms are going to show you what you need to see, not necessarily what you want to see. And if you're in a good place in your life, then what you're going to see is going to be really nice. It's going to be like, wow, I'm so grateful for everything. Like I have so much gratitude and love for like all the people in my life. Like I wish everyone I loved could be here right now, you know? But if you're in a situation in life where, you know, maybe things aren't really working out, things aren't lining up, and, you know, you might, you know, not know where you're going, that can honestly be a good time if you're open to it, to do psychedelics, to be like, okay, show me what I want to see, or show me what I should see about this. And it might be hard. It might be kind of emotional. It might, you know, be uncomfortable. But, you know, I don't think that discomfort is necessarily something to be like avoided at all costs. I think it can be helpful. But if you're like, I don't know that I'm really in a place where I want to kind of face some hard truths, you know, I probably have the sense that, you know, that they're there. I probably have the sense that there's maybe some things in my life that I don't really want to face right now. And maybe psychedelics aren't, you know, in the cards for you right now, you know, and that might be a good signal to not do it, you know, at risk of having one of these harder trips.
Yeah. Thank you. You explained that so well, made it simple, simplified it, and it can help people reconsider psychedelics. It can help people reconsider mushrooms. It can help people reconsider the idea or belief of what a bad trip is. So you educated me. Thank you. Thank you. So I want to go to another level, because we're going to go higher, because we have to. We're in the basement. We're in the basement. So now we're going to go a little bit higher, because psychedelic is a certain tier, and then there's a tier above psychedelics to ayahuasca. I would love to hear your thoughts, experiences around ayahuasca, and is that something you're going to integrate in your practice once that time comes?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. So I've never done ayahuasca. I have friends who have. My partner has. But for me, if I'm being totally honest, like it doesn't call to me. You know, it's a very powerful experience, and I recognize that. And there's like something definitely there for people who kind of need that, but it doesn't call out to me. it feels like something that maybe one day there'll be something, that will lead me there. I was actually just talking with a friend about this. Like, in my mind, like an example of what might do that is like when the day comes when both of my parents die and I'm here without them, that maybe that could be an example of something that would maybe lead me there to see if there's some, if I'm having a hard time with that, which I would imagine I would, that it could be some way to sort of, I don't know, connect with them, connect with myself in a different way. That might be something that would call me in that direction. But to me, ayahuasca, I mean, it's so powerful. I mean, it's kind of like so undeniably powerful that you don't end up really, you don't do things when you're on ayahuasca. You like lay down and you like take it and you like can't see out of your eyes, typically. You're like inside. You go inside and you're on this journey of like what's in there, and you kind of transcend, space and time and even like what it means to like have a body.
Wow.
And I think that there's something really powerful about that, because it's kind of like, in a way, an experience of death. In fact, there's a lot of people that sort of have done some research on this, and like DMT, which is one of the components of ayahuasca, it's the compound, like the chemical compound that is kind of released. That compound, along with something slightly resembling ketamine, is released in the brain when we die. Like we've found out that happens, and so in a sense, based on that, taking ayahuasca is like a death experience. Wow. And so maybe for someone who has like really crippling death anxiety, or something along those lines, and again is really up for a very potentially challenging experience. Like my partner, who's done ayahuasca a couple of times, like they were like some of the single most challenging experiences of her life. Really like putting you, like, talk about letting go of control. You have no control. You have to let go of even the idea of you. So, like that's big, know? So, I think for people that are maybe really wanting to see like what lies on the other side of that, it can be a really interesting thing. But, I guess I would say, like, because I think also with all of this stuff emerging in popularity and just with wellness in general and the way that the industry is, like, there's sometimes like a little bit of a pressure of like, oh, I'm like supposed to be like doing mushrooms, doing ayahuasca, like meditating every day, like, breathing in like sea air and like doing a infrared cold plunge. You know what I mean? Like there's all this stuff that's like, oh, like, should I be doing that to like optimize myself to like be the best me? And I would just say that it's okay to not want to do these things. And it doesn't mean you're missing out on life. It doesn't mean that you're living any less than for like not wanting to do one of these things. But if it calls to you, it's worth following. But if it isn't calling to you, I don't think it's worth just like doing it because it's a thing that people are doing.
Man, you have a wealth of knowledge, and you make it simple. You make it plain. And this is really helpful. So I appreciate you educating us, myself included, the audience, about these things, because what we know about it for many people is from someone who's never done it. What we know about is based off of what somebody said or this belief or myth. And that's why I love these conversations, because it's real, it's honest. We're talking to someone who's done it, who have an experience, and you just shed light on it to look at it differently. And if we begin reconsidering and looking at things differently, there's no telling the impact that it can make from people choosing to do things they've never done. I love it. All right. So I got some rapid fire questions before we close out.
Cool.
You can be as brief or not as you like. But
it's not my strong suit, but we'll try.
Okay. Whatever works for you. I'm okay with it. Number one, what do you do for fun?
Well, like I said, backpacking is one of them. It's kind of a different kind of fun because it's pretty hard, but going on these kind of adventures, planning the adventures, doing the adventures, that's definitely my idea of fun. I like playing music. I play the piano, and so just kind of like messing around on the piano, maybe singing a little bit. I've never been great at writing lyrics, but playing music is a very cathartic experience for me. So I really enjoy doing that. I love video games. Play a lot of video games. I mean, I do love movies and TV, but I think there's something just more engaging and immersive about video games. And it really is kind of coming to a place where it can stand on its own as like a storytelling medium as well. Like I think that's another thing that could be a whole podcast in itself about video games as a place to tell stories and to engage, with people. But I love video games. And yeah, I would say those are kind of the main things, like music, outdoors, video games. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So thinking about where you were, where you are, and where you're about to go, I'm curious. What would you say you've learned about yourself over this experience, over these years, to be who you are right now? One thing that you feel as though you learned about yourself.
Well, you said something in the class that you taught us recently that I really kind of resonated with, is that like if I've learned past tense anything, it's that the learning is ongoing. And I could word that slightly differently in that I think at various stages of my life, I've sort of had this feeling that I'm like, okay, now I'm me. Now, now this is like the full me. And then some time passes, and then I realize, oh, like I still change a lot. Okay. And so I think, right. So it's like, I remember like being in college and looking back on high school, like, wow, like I was so young and naive. I didn't know anything. And then I graduated college and I look back on college. I'm like, what? I didn't know anything. And then now I'm in grad school. I'm like, oh man, like me before I went to grad school, that's crazy. So, but I feel like I've caught on to the pattern. And so now I'm like, I'm just going to stop thinking that I've arrived. I'm going to like stop thinking that I'm not going to change again, because I'm probably going to change again.
That's powerful. That's powerful. All right, same question, but what have you learned about other people?
I think we're a lot more alike than we are different. And I think I've learned that, most people like are doing the best they can and, have what they imagine to be good intentions. And, like most everybody values family, whatever that means, and I think especially in this time of like so many people being divided on various lines of, oh, those other people are just terrible. And, and those people are, those are evil people over there. And like, I'm not saying that bad, terrible things don't happen, but I really think that part of what we need to be remembering is that like we're all in this together. And like we are all connected. Like what we even that hate that we direct towards other people, like that affects us somehow. And so like just remembering that like other people are not as other as we make them to be.
Love it. Love it. All right. So what's a word, phrase, memory, or moment that has stuck with you personally or professionally?
I got a good one for this. So I have a tattoo on my wrist. I don't know if you can see it, but it's in my mom's handwriting, and it says it's all practice.
Wow.
And that was a piece of advice that my mom gave me kind of on accident, because it was in a conversation where I was asking for advice for someone else. It was actually that partner that I was talking about earlier who's in a really tough time, and failure was just such a devastating thing for them. And like any little amount of failure was like, oh my God, I'm a failure. And I was like, that's like so hard for her. Like what would help? And my mom just said, I think it's important to remember that it's all practice. And I was like, Mom, I need that. Like, for me, I'm actually gonna like put that on my body so that I never forget that. Because I think it is just because it's not practice for something. it's not like, oh, there's going to be a moment when like everything that you've been preparing for is like going to be put to the test. I mean, there are those moments, but even that is practice.
I
So
love it. Tell
it's
Mom
it's
Dukes
very
we said,
empowering.
tell
Yeah,
Mom we said thank you. Like all of us said thank you for that. That's good. That's good.
100%.
All right. So life work. If you could offer a keepsake or something that you want to share with the audience that was impactful for you, or just something you want to share with them, anything comes to mind.
Hmm. I saw that this was going to be a question. I kind of struggled with coming up with something, you know, to say, to distill it to. Um, I mean, it seems so like cliche, but like love is really important. Like, and kind of giving that to others um, is like really good for you. Um, like I think we so often don't tell like our friends that we love them. At least as men, I can definitely say that like it's kind of goes against the norm to like tell someone like, hey, I love you, like, and I think that it's when you do start doing that, when you start making a habit of just telling people that you love them, like you can see the effect that it has almost immediately, and it bounces right back. It's like it like creates a thing, an expansive sort of energy. So it sounds like kind of like a cliche hippie thing to say, but like seriously, like spreading love is like actually like a very legitimate kind of pursuit that I think is very worthwhile. Um, and so yeah, just tell more people that you love them and that you care about them, especially if you do. Like if you do like love somebody, like tell them that because they might take that for granted. They might not know that in the same way that it would feel like if you told them that. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your knowledge, your wisdom, your time, your intelligence, everything that you brought to the table. Just teaching us about different things where it allows us to consider something new and different. And to me, when I consider something new and different, that means I can reconsider what I thought I knew. So
Hmm.
thank you, thank you, thank you. And as I told you all the listeners, I told you he's a big deal. I told you he was coming with it, and that's exactly what he did. So if you don't mind sharing, how can people get in contact with you or anything that you're offering? Please feel free to share so people can connect with you.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, most of the stuff that I do, you can find that I post about on my Instagram. It's just David_Patty. In terms of like my creative stuff, you can find it through my Instagram. But so me and a group of friends, we have a production company and we're working on a pretty big film right now, actually, which is a crazy thing to be doing while you're in grad school, but we're trying it. Um, but so that production company is called Practice Pictures, which is actually based on the It's All Practice philosophy. So you can find that there's a website, practicepictures.xyz. And you can see kind of some of the stuff that we've done in the past and what we're working on now. But yeah, that's about it. I mean, I'd love to connect with anybody who has questions about any of this stuff. It's been a really amazing time talking with you. I really appreciate you making space for this and having me on. It's just, again, these aren't conversations that everyone's having, so it's good to be having them.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you so much for sharing, for being vulnerable, for being honest. Your emotional intelligence is on point. To your parents, I said thank you. From one therapist to two other ones, just speaks volumes to who you are. And one thing I love about this show is we're always going to connect dots to who we were, who we are, and who we're becoming. I appreciate you for sharing yourself with us, all three versions. I appreciate you sharing all that with us and looking forward to having you back because there's more that we have to learn.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I'm still becoming.
Yes, still becoming. It never ends. It never ends. So, for all you listening, thank you all for tuning in. This episode has been brought to you by REI. I'm speaking it into existence. So, so thank you all. Have a great day. Much love.
Awesome.